All right. Hello, I'm Steve Evans. I am currently the assistant principal here at University High School. A little bit of background about myself so I can relate to my audience is that I started off in the classroom. I was a biology teacher. I started teaching in 2003. For a couple years before that, I was a substitute teacher. I taught biology down in Southern Illinois for 3 years, and then I got a job here at U High in '06, teaching biology as well. And for the last 6 years, I have been the assistant principal here. And so that background information is kind of important because since we're talking about technology, I feel like I have been through this evolution of laptops in the classrooms and phones and the way students manage their phones as well as social media. Here at U High, we are a one-to-one initiative. Actually, every kid has their own school-issued laptop. And what I want to do is kind of briefly highlight the positives and negatives that I've seen as an assistant principal here at U High. Positives is that every one of our kids has the same tool. It's an educational tool in which our teachers utilize in the classroom and provides many opportunities for our students to learn from. And it's right there at their fingertips. Research, stuff like that, as far as what they need to contribute in the classroom, they're all equal and it's all there. Negatives, there are certain negatives. One of them is just the learning curve of responsibility. Technology is great. It's a great educational tool. It can highlight a lot of things and connect with real world applications. However, it can also serve as a distraction. We've done a really good job with filtering the systems to where those distractions aren't as high as they used to be. One of the biggest negatives I believe that they cause is just the way students can be distracted from the learning environment. I think the cell phones are way more of a negative, which I'll get to that here in a second. Um, One thing that U High has done a really good job of is this technology, the security portion of filtering with the laptops, and that's why I feel like they're not as bad as the distractions they used to be. We've done a really good job of filtering students away from social media access through the laptop. That's why I kind of referred to a minute ago that the phones are kind of the biggest thing for me. So I'm gonna kind of talk about it real quick. Cell phones in particular are positives and negatives. We all know this. We're all adults. Um, for those of you who have kids, I'm sure you can relate to how much you actually use the cell phone talking and communicating with your kids. For me, our students, our adolescents right now is in the world of instant feedback. So I think that's kind of a negative because these kids don't know how to deal with conflict anymore because of cell phones. I feel like I have to deal with that and mediate a lot of these conversations between students because it's not even they don't even register what they're saying to their peers because it's so easy. And so for me, one of the biggest hurdles that we have to overcome is the way our students, our teenagers, use social media on their cell phones. And I guess I can go into that if you want me to. For me, I'm kind of, I don't want to use the word old school, but I'm very leery of social media. I think cell phones for texting and calling, just like are a great way to communicate safety, where you're at, what's going on, up to date kind of stuff. Using the internet for kind of as a computer, right there on your fingertips to research stuff like that. Kids check their fantasy league, stuff like that. So that stuff's kind of fun. It's the social media aspect that I'm kind of always kind of leery about, and I've been that way because I feel like I deal with I've seen our students, and it's even supported nationwide. I've seen the rise of anxiety as mental health increase dramatically, exponentially, because I believe social media plays a part in that. I feel like our students get instant feedback so quickly that they see these posts that they feel like they have to be able to compete, or they recognize some of the negatives because people aren't afraid to just post that stuff out there and just call someone ugly or fat or cyberbully or call them a loser or say a lot worse things. Those are actually kind of calm compared to some stuff I deal with because they don't see them face to face. I don't think if our students had to go to someone's face and say this stuff to them, half of the stuff would never happen. And so for me, I feel like it's there's some negatives with social media. I realize that for news and the resources that are available online are so instant now that you weren't able to see this kind of stuff, and there is some positives, but it's just, for me, I feel like society has changed a little bit as far as teenagers. You walk the halls, as soon as they get out of the classroom, they want to get on their phone. So they're walking down the hallways with their heads down, checking their phones. They're staying in groups, and instead of communicating with each other, they actually just look at their phones. And so I feel like what I used to call or what I still call like the dinner time, supper time kind of conversations that you would have with your parents, I think that's kind of going by the wayside because of the instant feedback and the way kids are addicted to their phones. A few seconds ago, I kind of used the word addiction. And so, I guess I probably need to clarify what I mean by that. As far as me being the disciplinarian here, I've never really had a clinical diagnosis of a student coming in and getting help because of addiction, but it is now. If anyone reads on this, it's a full-blown addiction, and I do believe if I was able to clinically diagnose, I would a little prescription pad, and it would just say stay off your cell phone for a while, because the kids need it and want it. And how I know by that is if one of our kids has their cell phone out in class, which they can't have, the teacher confiscates them, and then the teacher turns them into me, and the kid cannot get that to the end of the day. You would be surprised how many kids come in immediately after asking for their cell phone. They want to check it, they want to see it, and I've also talked to students one-on-one, and that you get their leg vibrates even though they're on their phone, and they're checking their phone. They feel like it's like a phantom vibrate in their leg, and your guys probably does that as well sometimes. So some of you guys can relate to that. But I do truly believe that our kids are addicted, and I also believe that our adults are addicted to this stuff as well. People have to have their cell phones on them. A great clinical study I think I'd like to do is I'd like to confiscate every cell phone and hold them for a week and just see how many people feel refreshed. And some of our students, and see the conversations that are happening in the classrooms with each other, not just necessarily student teacher, but actually with each other down in the lounge, which is like our cafeteria. I would love to go see those conversations taking place instead of people just constantly on their phones, sitting right next to each other and not really talking. Plus, conflict is a huge one. How we deal with conflict. Our students, our teenagers, they do not know how to deal with conflict like some of the adults. When we had to do this kind of stuff prior to cell phones and social media, I do believe that. Me personally, I know this is going to sound really bad, but I really do feel like the majority of the bad choices that happen in society is a very easily outlet and resource because of social media. They can instantly see this kind of stuff, whether it's a bad news, a bad video, or stuff like that. They can post things very easily. I do feel like that's a huge issue as far as the way our kids handle things. But I do feel like there is an addiction going on. And they have to have it. People just don't view it as bad right now, like cocaine or stuff like that, like when you hear addiction. But there are people in this world, I have walked these hallways, who are great kids, but they have to have that cell phone on them at all times because they're afraid they're going to miss something. One thing that we've tried to do to help manage some of the worries that we have with cell phones is currently our students cannot connect to the school Wi-Fi through their phones. But we're also with Illinois State University, so we're able to work with that and that filter. Because one thing we can't do is we can't filter what they do on their phones. They're their own personal devices. They own them. I'm not going to search through them unless I have reasonable suspicion that a student has violated a school rule or policy for that. Teachers will never search the phones. So what we've done is that our students cannot connect to the Wi-Fi. However, they can still use their own data plan. And so that's between them and their parents and guardians on how they want to manage that, and if they have unlimited data or not. But as far as like some advice for teachers is a lot of our teachers will try to incorporate cell phone use in classrooms. They'll use like Kahoot so they can simply vote. There's different ways in which our teachers have tried to incorporate cell phone usage in the classroom to give quick formative feedback. So there's a lot of positives that can take place. The biggest thing for me, or the only thing that is successful for students, I should say, is they have to be mature enough to understand the academic responsibility that they have and the distraction that those phones take away. Some of the students that I talk to about how they study, or they'll be like, they'll fail tests. I'm like, did you study? Well, yeah, I studied for like 45, 60 minutes. Well, how did you study? Well, sometimes they have the TV on. Half the time they have their phone right next to them, and it's constantly vibrating. So halfway through a book or while they're reading or whatever, they'll flip over and they got to look at why their phone's vibrating. Well, also a big thing that I've noticed when I talk to students is the interrupted amounts of sleep that our teenagers get, which if you read, scientifically speaking, sleep is huge as far as their development and what's going on and how many hours they need it. And I will talk to a lot of students that they have their cell phones right next to their bed, and they're constantly getting notifications, or there's someone that wants to text them or send them a video, and or they got a Snapchat and they got to instantly see it. And how much interrupted sleep our students are getting plays a factor, and that's something we don't even talk about. And I know I just went on a tangent outside the classroom, but it's about the students that are really successful with cell phones, for me, understand the responsibility of studying first, and then the reward is maybe getting on that phone right then and there. But they're actually able to know when. So it's you have to make that decision. It's the kids who can't that I worry about. They're constantly on that cell phone. And it's the same thing that you see in the college classes, how many kids are on their cell phone anymore. I was just talking to a college professor over at HSU Homecoming, and they said it's ridiculous, and it's just a sign of disrespect, which I find a lot of value in the sense of showing respect to my educators, to my teachers, and so on and so on, and to anyone I talk to. But I don't think our society, some of our students that I deal with, they don't look at it as a sign of disrespect of getting on the phone while they're talking to you, and I think that's something that people should be worried about. I guess one of the things, some advice I can always give everybody, go in the future, because I understand that you guys are moving from the classroom, or you have your interest in moving to the classroom in the library, is that when you guys get in that position to run your own library and be part of the school system that way and helping each other out, is make sure that you're always doing your best to advocate for the students. Talk to your administrators, talk to the teachers. Don't just sit there and be someone who just checks out books, because that isn't showing what you're doing. Advocate, be part of it, help write grants if you need be, because the more people in your school is aware of what you're doing, it's a lot easier to help say, yes, this person is very valuable in our school, because we all know that Illinois and the state budget is scary at times. And so what you got to do is you got to represent your department to the fullest that you can. Allow everyone to know what's going on. Don't just sit behind the desk. Get out, walk around, get them students, know them students, see their faces, build those relationships, and your students will become your strongest advocate.